In this video, we're going to break down Fancy Shit by Sid and Taylor Renee. The whole point of breaking down tracks, and I highly recommend you do this, and hopefully watching this video will make it a lot faster and easier for you in terms of doing it yourself. But the whole point is producers want to know, what am I missing from my tracks? Why don't I sound like the pros? Why don't my tracks evolve and develop in the same way that the pros do? So what we want to do is we want to find the missing pieces for your music by looking at patterns from your favorite tracks and producers. And I like to do this by looking at the top tracks, because the top tracks are performing well, DJs are playing them, and the dance floors are responding to them. And so like Sid's track, Fancy Shit. And the whole point is once you extract the patterns and you see them, right, then you can start to use them in your own way, in your own tracks, and make freaking bangers that go off on the dance floor. Now, some kind of cool things or some fancy shit. Actually, the funny thing is there's not a lot of fancy shit in this track at all. It's very simple, which is why it's so powerful. But some of the cool things that happen in this track, and these are some of the notes here, is that, number one, just find a hook that people care about. That's a major lesson from this track, and we'll dive into that. Another idea is, once you find that hook that everyone's going to care about, then you got to understand how almost everything in the production comes from that hook. And that's going to create a very high level feeling of coherence and being inside a world, a little bit like a world building thing. And we'll look at that. And then something that I call punks, which is, in my opinion, a much better concept than something like ear candy. Ear candy is cool, but punks are like structured ear candy, and this track is a perfect example of punks, all right? And so we're going to dive into these things and a lot more, so let's dive in. So let's break Fancy Shit down. Like always, what we're going to do is we're interested in how the hooks, or arrangement in general, is how the hooks and groove develop over time to take the listener on an exciting roller coaster journey. So the two arrangements all about storytelling, and the two main characters of a tech house track, whatever, are going to be hooks and groove. So arrangement is how the hooks and groove develop over time. Right. And so it's all about the story of those two. So that's what we're interested in. We're interested in how the groove develops over time, and we're interested in how the hook develops over time. Groove for me would be the drums and bass, and then hooks would be things like vocals and sound design. The groove is what gets people dancing, and then the hooks are ultimately the things that people fall in love with and care about. And so if we can see the story on how people are dancing, right, very simple, drops and breaks, that's mostly with the groove. And then with the hooks, like, how do we keep them interested? How we build up? How do we create big payoff moments going into the drops of the hooks? Those are the kinds of things that we're interested in, because there's this quote from another book called, not another book, but this book called Save the Cat, which is actually on screenwriting. But there's a quote somewhere in there that says screenwriting is all structure. And when it comes to arrangement for music is all structure. And so that's what we're going to try to decode. And let's get to it. Here we go. So right here, just right away, starting it off, we're just getting part of the groove, right? So we're just going to do beat here. And then there's also something else in here, which is the bass. But both of these guys right now are high passed. And so let's just create a little 8-bar clip. Is that 8 bars? Yeah. All right, cool. Could be a little step down in the bass right here, but it sounds almost like a pitch bend. Bow. Very much the current sound right now from Sid here, which is interesting. Yeah. So that's cool. And you've got that kind of electro-ish offbeat bass line, the small kind of open hat, or not open hat, really, the closed hat, and just that driving eighth note kind of rhythm. So all right, you could even see in the waveform here that the bass or something is starting to open a little bit. So we'll definitely get a feel for that. All right, cool. And then we get the cash register. I'm going to call it money sounds. We got the money sounds. There we go. So we'll call that, color that green for money. Cool. All right. And so there's kind of a pattern that's going to just come up the way that this is going. So we've got the kind of scrolling sound. Okay, we got ding 1, and then we can just say like ding 2. And that's not really important. It's just we got some money sounds. We got some cool money sounds. And yeah, this is an interesting blend between the kind of current sound of tech house, like with the drums and the bass, the electro influence. And then this also reminds me of a kind of thematic thing. Like there was that one that say like I know David Guetta did a remix of it, but like I like guys that are 6'5", blue eyes, whatever, that kind of thing too. So this is bringing together two things that have worked in the market, and it's sitting at the top of the charts right now. It's almost like you can kind of predict it. I'm just kidding. But it is bringing together two things that are absolutely undeniable. Of course, it can't, it's all about execution. So here we go. All right, now we got, let's see, we got vocals here, and then we're just going to do a nice little low pass up. So LP up, just like that. And so it's just a filter, and it's a very standard way, kind of introducing a vocal. Just rep it, and then low pass it up over time. So I got some more money sounds. All right. So we've just got the first part, no second ding. So maybe I'll color this second ding a different color there. Maybe I'll color this something else too, like that. There we go. So we got like 3 little sounds here. We'll see which ones play throughout. All right, so there we go. We're going to get that rolling sound. I like that where it just cuts off. That's cool. Abrupt. And then here we've got high pass again. We forgot to do HP over here. So let's do that. Boom. And then we'll copy this over here like that. And then here on the basso, I should put opens, because this is definitely a big move that he makes in the track to build tension. So opens. All right, so vocal here is opening even more. I should also put a Vox rep. So I like money. Let's see. So it sounds to me like his there's 2 distinct layers to the bass. You've got the sub down the middle, and you've got this wider layer. Now you could do that all in one oscillator, right? You can have a sub down the middle, and then you can have a wider oscillator on the sides. But this seems to me to be 2 distinct, very distinct layers. Could be one synth, who knows? Doesn't really matter. It really matters not at all. But just to play this down here real quick. But here you can hear definitively a lift coming up. We're going to listen to that later on, but that sounds like another layer there. But anyway, the main kind of bass here has this layer sounds like a different one than what comes later. This one right here. Now that sounds pretty similar, doesn't it? What about here? And here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put in bass layer like that. and we'll just have the sub and just some other layer. If it turns out to be 3, then we'll go for it, but I doubt it. I think it's just 2. And I'm going to put it in here like that. All right. Okay, let's get the break because I just want to get that down. Okay, really strange top end here, just kind of cutting out just a bar in at 5 bars in. Okay, I guess he's staging it, so it's open, a little bit more closed, and then it goes away. All right, cool. So top end staged down. So much more audible. So more audible here. All right. This is still a rep though. So let's go here. Just gonna duplicate this. We're gonna do rep. There's a click right there. See that guy? That's funny. All right. There's probably just a tops loop that didn't have a little fade on it. All right, there we go. And then this is growing a little bit here. So this is grow with reverb and delay. Pretty much down the middle though. Well, the reverb's definitely getting wide on there, but the delay's down the middle. So this is just ways to create chaos and tension in the vocal. So this is going to be the full phrase here, and that's what the rep is doing. It's just working all the way up, and then we're just going to deliver the full phrase. I'm going to color that yellow just to make it stand out a little bit more. And then the beat is gone, and so let's see, go like that. Okay, and then it just cuts right there, and then we've got our nice little money sounds. Okay, cool. So we'll put these over here like that, and then we'll just get rid of this one. So okay, cool. So let's get the beat over here, and then we've got, let's see, this is gonna be the SD, the lead synth here, which kind of sounds like some kind of combination of another very popular thing. Like this song is really just bringing in some of the most popular things you're hearing in the track. So like, for example, in West End's tracks, Drum Death, probably the most dramatic use of this kind of waveform called the ICANN has kick. That it doesn't necessarily need to be an ICANN has kick in Serum, but just some kind of waveform that creates a lot of buzz. And the way that you create a lot of buzz, if you just have a waveform that like just has like a really sharp or big dynamic part of it. So when it loops around, it creates this buzz, this really buzzy sound. And then another piece of this sound that I'm hearing is like a vowely thing. So now you're getting things like what Max Styler or Mal P are doing with a lot of vowely kind of sounds. So again, just kind of bringing together a lot of the sounds of the meta, you could say. Cool. So, and then this right here is obviously just following the bass. All right, so let's get these little money sounds over here, and then All right, then we got a nice little vocal at the end. All right, and then we got some more money sounds right here. This is going to be one of the most important things that we talk about in this video. It's pretty perfect, and Sid has done this in the past in a really flawless way in his track How We Do. But I want to wait a little bit till we get over here to really talk about it, because this is just starting to develop it. But even in the spirit of arrangement, this is all about developing the hooks, like the interaction between the lead synth here, the valley kind of buzzy waveform sound, and with the money sounds, and then the vocal. Like those three things interacting, and what we'll talk about like in punks is what the track's all about and how that kind of develops with some very minimal development in the groove. But this, even early on, is pretty much what the track is all about, other than that being kind of sandwiched between or around the breaks right there. All right, but we'll talk about this more in a second. But just notice that simple interaction, right? You've got lead synth here, a little bit of a gap, lead synth. Then we got here the money sounds, lead synth, and then we got the money sounds plus the vocal. But let's see, let's keep going. I love the fact that there's no edit here. There's just it's just steamrolling through. There's no high pass. I like seeing that stuff because it's just not over-engineered, right? Like, it's just like, let's just keep going, right? I don't need to sweat like this crazy thing here, but just having the synth and then having these kind of little minor interruptions, or I shouldn't say minor, it's a major interruptions, right? These are hook interruptions in the pattern of the synth. But that's enough. That's enough, right? And there we get the little layer. So that little bass layer. So this is a lift. We'll probably talk about this a little bit, but maybe we could talk about it right now. It's not crazy. But here within, this is 16 bars, right? So here we have 8 bars. Here we have 8 bars. If we look at the structure of the drop here, it's pretty simple in terms of the hook pattern, right? The pattern of the hook. What is the hook pattern? Well, here's all the hooks, right? Nothing crazy. We got a lead synth, we've got money sounds, and we got vocals. The way that those sounds are organized together, or they're sequenced, you could say, is the hook pattern. It's like if you knew nothing about music and you were just going to listen to the song, what would you hear? What would you hum? You would hum this. You would hear bom 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 bom. Then you'd be dancing, and then ba na 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 na, ding ding, ba na 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 na. Keep dancing, ba na 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 na. Buy me shit, I know you rich, and then you just go again, right? So you know nothing about music, but you already know something about the hook pattern. You wouldn't call it the hook pattern; you would just be singing it, because that's what music is all about. And so here we have the hook pattern, and then that basically gets repeated. But I think they have a vocal right here. I like money, fancy shit. Yep. And this will probably finish the phrase. So even right here, we got a little bit of sophistication because we'll probably have a call response. I've definitely listened to the song, but I'm just guessing this is going to be a call response. Let's say I could be wrong. Money, fancy shit. Yeah, I got money, fancy, and this one's going to be buy me shit, I know you're rich. There you go, right? Of course, right? Because you can have call response. Okay, so let's get back to what I was talking about, which is a lift. So this right here, what really changes? Well, we get this. This is like, you could think of this as like defining normal for the moment. We're just chilling, right? So we'll call this the chill section, the beginning of the first, or not the beginning, but the first 8 bars. We're just chilling. Just chill. Chilling in the moment, right? And then we get into the second 8 bars. Well, what happens? We lift the energy with what? This little bass layer right here. So here, listen right here. And then listen here. There's going to be a new layer. Okay, listen again. Here's before. After. A little tiny layer. Nothing crazy, right? Just a little bit of a layer. And then the other slight lift. And so that's what I call lift. It's a sound that just takes the energy to the next level. A little bit. Doesn't have to be crazy. But then here is another example of a lift, because over here in this little, I'll call it a punk, but like ear candy spot, right? Is the money sounds. Okay. Now over here at the structurally the same place is going to be the money sounds, but also a vocal.
Money, fancy shit.
So this right here is a lift over and above what happened before in the same structural moment. All right. So there you go. 2 little lifts right there. Okay. So let's keep going. All right, cool. So let's head out on into the break and build right here. So we'll do HP. We'll bring this down to HP. So I don't hear the layer right here. You see this? Listen, watch this. No layer, layer. No layer, layer. Right? On the bass. I'm talking about on the bass. No layer on the bass. Just a high pass sub. Here we have a layer. That's what made me think that there's got to be 2 things going on there. Okay, so then okay, so this is full Vox rep LP up now. All right, we'll call this like partial because it's not full. In other words, right? Yeah, we'll keep going. There's something I wanted to say, and maybe I'll just say it because I can't think of where else I would want to say it, other than listen to what's going on here. You've got high pass drums and bass, and you got 1 vocal, and this is going to be 8 bars. What's going on? Like, why is it that almost all of the producers are like questioning their entire existence if they don't have a freaking cornucopia of sounds, you know? If their tracks aren't stuffed like a freaking turkey. Whereas here, we have drums that are high-passed, a bass that's high-passed, and a vocal that's coming up with a low-pass. Like, what's going on? And it's because, like, Sid's not forgetting what people really care about, and that's the hook. It's just she is saying something that people in the club would want to say. That's it, right? They're not going to be, they don't need to be impressed with insane sound design skills. That's not really catchy. That's not memorable. That's not something that they can connect with their friends about. That's not something they can really get lost in. They're not going to sit there in the club looking for an intellectual sound design experience, wondering, wow, man, I wonder what waveforms they're using. Are you using FM or AM? They're not worried about that. They're like, dude, can I fucking sing the hook or not? You know, do I care about it or not? And like people are always going to care about the human voice, and they're always going to care about saying things that are cool. You know, another track that reminds me of this is I don't trust a soul. I don't even trust my bitch. Perfect. Like that's such a good thing to say. And when you got something like that, then that can carry the entire track, you know? Okay. And so one other thing I want to point out too, because again, I don't know where else I could point it out, is if you listen to is this idea that everything comes from the hook. I'll say it again. Everything comes from the hook, which is another important reason to have a hook first mentality. You don't have to, right? Producers are creative people. People could do whatever they want. But if producers are finding themselves complaining about, well, why aren't my songs doing as well? Why aren't they going off in the club? Why don't they sound like the tracks and producers that I look up to? Then it's like, we got to break this stuff down. And so with this guy here, the thing is that everything comes from the hook. And so if you want to write tracks that fundamentally connect, what do people connect with? It's the hook. And so the bass line is following the hook. It's using the follow the leader technique, which is just what I call the technique of where the bass line, for example, follows the rhythm or melody sometimes of the vocal, usually in a simplified way. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit, right? So if you listen to that vocal, what is she emphasizing in the lyrics? I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. What part of the bass line is getting accented? Okay. Is the bass line accenting the moment when she says fancy, possibly? Let's see.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit.
What's the name of the song? Oh, it's fancy shit. So the word that the bass line is accenting is the word that's the title of the track. You know, like I feel like I'm being a dick, but it's true. Like this is not like, it's interesting because it is thought out. It's well thought out. But it's just like, where are you overthinking, right? Are you overthinking things that matter or that will actually have an impact on the listener? Or are you not, right? Are you like this? All of the things that are happening here have an impact on the listener, right? The fact that the bass line introed back here coming into the bass drop are already playing what the rhythm is going to be in the vocal. The fact that the bass line is accenting what the vocal is accenting. So by the time the vocal comes in, which is saying something that people actually care about, people already feel connected to it in multiple ways, rhythmically, melodically, lyrically. They just care. And then here now we have the lead synth that's playing a rhythm and a melody similar to it, but it's just in a cool kind of contemporary sound. Right? So everything comes from the hook. Okay. And so moving on here. So again, everything comes on the hook. We got the bass line into the hook. We've got the lead synth that's just kind of mimicking what the bass line and the hook are doing, just in a smaller way, using a contemporary sound that people already care about. We've got the lyrics that people care about, all these things. And so let's now keep on going.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you
All right, so this is opening. Cool.
rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich.
So some very gentle risers coming up in the background. So let's get that here, just super gentle in the background.
Money, fancy stuff. I know you rich. I like money.
All right, I'm missing some of these noises here. Let's see.
I know you rich. I like money, fancy
I guess not.
shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit.
Okay, cool. So we've got no little money sound right there, but we do have a little bit of a crash. So let's get a crash in here. Is that the only crash we've had so far? Let's see. So if we go here, okay, there's a crash right there on top of the money sound. No crash. What about right here going into the break? Nope. Okay. Here. Okay, so first crash just going in the break.
Money, fancy shit. Money, fancy shit.
And this is just a 909. Okay, cool.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit.
Even right now, what I'm listening for is like that bass that's certainly opening. It doesn't sound very wide to me. Here, this is not a much wider, but this is a wider bass layer. Does that sound the same as this?
I know you rich.
Not to me. Let's see.
Buy me stuff. I know you rich.
All right, so we'll just call this Vox main rep open.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money.
Okay, so there we're gonna get the money sounds right here.
Stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy
Okay, so you can hear the vocals starting to kind of starts to delay and grow. So delay and reverb, two of your best friends when it comes to creating and building tension and chaos in the build. That gets resolved over here when you step into the order of the drop, right? Going from chaos to order, a high level contrast. And contrast in general is what you're looking for in terms of moving from here to here. And we can talk about that a little bit more, but let's see what else happens. All right, so we got the crash, and then here we're stepping into a money rep, which is classic thing to do, where you're going to just break it down into just a very small or short little phrase that you're going to rep. So beat is still going for sure, but there's no kick, and that's a great technique. The stupid name that I have for it, for removing the kick, especially right there in the last 8 bars of a build, or even sometimes over here at the last 4, is weighing anchor. And weighing anchor is the idea of you pulling up an anchor on a ship. And so what happens is the ship is not anchored anymore. And the same idea is a metaphor for a track. When you remove the kick drum, you're removing the anchor of the track. And the track just now feels suspended. And because of that, you just get this underlying tension. So all these things right here, with the bass opening, the delay, and the reverb on the vocal creating chaos as it goes. Did I already mention no kick in this little list of tension building things? But the no kick is certainly building tension. The risers are building tension. Everything, every element in this section right here is communicating tension so that we can release it over here to get the resolution and the drop, right? It's just saying, hey, listener, get excited. Something cool is about to happen, right? That's fundamentally what tension says. It creates anticipation for what's to come. There we go. All right, did I miss something? Let's see. So no money noises right there. All right. That's kind of cool. I like that. Money, money, money. I like money, money, money. That's cool. All right, and then we have like a little fancy shit thing right there. Cool. Let's do FS. All right, so we got the bass continuing right here. So let's go. Whoops, not Command F, Command D. And let's close that. It sounds like there's a little tiny bit of like a snare roll, not a 16th, an 8th note snare roll. That could be something else, could just be white noise or something, but I hear like the top of a snare roll just coming up. And it's playing 8th notes, which is funny. So we'll just go like that. And there you go. All right, cool. And then you can hear a little bit of that high passing on the bass right at the end here. Money, fancy shit, buy me stuff, I know you rich. Cool, all right. And then that little high passing right there, same idea, creates that contrast going into the drop, because what the main thing that's going to come back in the drop other than the synth is the low end. So just doing a little bit more high passing right at the end makes that low end hit harder. Why? Because of contrast. So do we get both dings? Just one. Okay, so let's bring the synth back here. And then we're going to need to bring over the money sounds. So let's bring these guys over like that. And then we're going to need, I think, the vocals now. We go like this. And then I'm just going to move them across. Okay, cool. So let's map this out. Any different? Let's... Hold on. Hold up. I missed something. This is just going to be like a hat lift. It's a minor thing, but it's kind of cool. I like it. It's cool because it's kind of playing this interesting part, which is like, if you listen, there's a 909-ish hat going on the first offbeat and then skipping the next offbeat. So it's kind of like, wait, that's not an offbeat. Here you go. It's kind of like this. Let's see if we can see it. Watch this. But it's not over here. It's just right here. That's kind of cool. I like that. And then is it playing in here? Probably not. It is playing in there. Okay, cool. All right. What about over here?
Money, fancy shit. I like money.
I don't think so. Okay, and then going into the drop right here. Let's go over here. Okay, drums are pretty similar right here. Again, because we're looking at the arrangement, right? And the arrangement is how the hooks and groove develop over time. And right now I'm just looking at how the groove develops, or specifically the drums. And so this is a developing move for sure, at least from the intro, in terms of how the drums are developing. And I wanted to see if there is a development now when we get over to the second drop right here. Let's see. Is there anything? There's that little clap roll or clap fill. Let's see. Okay, let me go right here. Okay, just now they're just filling the gaps even more with sounds here, but okay. Sounds pretty similar though. So there's not like a major drum lift or anything. We're not getting any hats, rides, shakers, any of that stuff over and above what happened before. So in other words, not a development. So. All right, but we are getting a little clap fill, which is a lift or an elevation technically over and above what happened before. So right here, pop, pop. Cool. And then
I like money, fancy shit.
all right, cool. And then this just continues, so we could probably just duplicate that across.
Stuff I know you.
And then let's see.
Buy me stuff, I know you rich. Stuff I know you rich.
Okay, and of course we're going to get that base layer lift right here, which I should probably put below the bass, and maybe I'll color that red. Okay. So again, lifting here, and really quick, the difference between a lift and what I just called an elevation is that a lift happens within, for me, again, look, I'm just defining the way that I use terms here, right? And so a lift for me is when you have a sound that lifts the energy usually within a section, like within a drop. So we're chilling, boom, we lift the energy, all right? But an elevation is when we're lifting, well, oh no, but I'll define it in terms of lifts, I guess, but is when we're lifting over and above a different section, right? And so, it's just a more precise way to use, it's just a way to be more precise. Like, are you talking about a lift? Are you talking about an elevation, right? An elevation is like when a whole section is elevated in some way over and above another section. So in this case, an elevation would be this little clap sound, because we don't have these little clap sounds over here. Right, but we do have them here. So that's an addition, right? But technically for me, it would be an elevation. All right, so, and here though, this guy, the bass layer, this is not an elevation. It's just a lift, right? If this was like more open, or it was more dramatic than what happened back here, then that would be an elevation. But this is just a lift inside the drop structure right here. Cool.
I like money, fancy shit. Money, fancy shit. Stuff I know you.
Okay, cool. Let's get this kind of call response thing going on right here, because that's, again, to use, to be more precise about what's going on. Okay, cool. Okay, interesting. There is some white noise that I heard pop up on my right ear. Maybe I'm too deaf to hear it on my left ear, but I'm actually curious about that really quick. I'm going to go get if I can hear it on my left ear, because I have the tinnitus, which is unfortunate, but just constant ringing. Mostly I don't hear it whatsoever, but if we swap this, I'm curious.
Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money. Stuff I know you rich. I like money. Stuff I know you. Stuff I know you. Stuff I know you rich. Stuff I know you. Stuff I know you rich. Stuff I know. Stuff I know you.
Yeah, that's hard for me to hear on my left ear. That's funny. But you could definitely hear that. You can definitely hear some white noise coming. It's just a riser. It's not that big. I thought it was going to be like a big kind of like white noise thing that gets lifted over here, but it just looks like some riser or something. All right, cool. So let's talk about punks. All right, because this is a massive part of this track, and punks are I'm in the wrong drop. Okay, so over here, punks are. Hold on one sec. Oh shit, I was listening in the wrong section. So let me go back over here really quick. Utility, drop this on here. Let's go to swap again. Yeah, there is this interesting lift on that, you know? There is this like white noise thing there. Hear that? That is very strange. It's just like this white noise texture lift. Or elevation. See, this could be a lift and an elevation because we're lifting here in the second 8 bars. But this is something that didn't happen in the previous drop. So this is both a lift and an elevation. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money, fancy. Okay, yeah, so punks. So punks are short for punctuation points. And like an English sentence, if you... sometimes you'll have a comma in the middle of it and a period at the end. And the important thing there is that there's a structure to it and there's a hierarchy to the structure. So a comma is more important than like a period at the end of a statement. And so there's typically going to be a hierarchy to the structure. And there's a similar thing going on in tracks where you have this kind of grammar to an 8-bar section. So just like there's a kind of grammar in, you know, many languages, but speaking the English language, there's a, you know, we could use the analogy to talk about a grammar of an 8-bar section. That's where punks come in. You have these punctuation points. And the punctuation points usually happen, the most important ones are going to happen at the 4-bar mark and the 8-bar mark. Okay. And that's exactly where CID is having these things happen. Even if we go back over here, right? So this right here, and I'm selecting the lead synth right here. This is kind of the star of the show. It's the main hook, right? You can almost think of it as like a vocal, you know, it's of course not, but you know, this is just kind of playing throughout. And then the question is, well, when do those other things happen? What do those other exciting moments happen? And well, here we get the cash register kind of money sounds. And where does that happen? It happens around the halfway mark. It happens around the 4-bar mark is what I say. And so that's a punk that happens at the 4-bar mark. So you can think of punks, again, they stand for punctuation points. So here would be like a punctuation point. It's like the comma of the 8-bar drop. Here would be like the period of an 8-bar mark. And you can see in this first 8 bars, at least, that there is a little bit of a hierarchy. So this guy is not quite as important as this one because this one has the money sounds and the vocals. So this one's just more dramatic. It's more exciting. Okay. And, but the important thing is they're happening at the 4 and the 8s. And I call that a P4 and a P8. Now, a lot of people are going to call these kinds of things maybe like ear candy, and that's fine. Like you can call them ear candy. The one thing I don't like about the term ear candy is that it doesn't teach you anything. It's just like almost the nature of when someone says ear candy is like just do something random. And that's not helpful. Right? Because music is not random. Music is highly structured. The definition of music over and above noise is that music is organized noise in a way that we find appealing, right? And so built into the idea of music is this idea of structure and organization. And so here, that's why I don't like the term ear candy, because it promotes almost like this randomness. But again, what's going to really connect with us is when we get these kind of is when things are structured and presented in an ordered way, because it creates call response. Call response is just a simple structure, right? It creates anticipation. And that's what structure and organization allow you to do. It allows you to set things up and create moments of anticipation or set up expectation, and then pay off that expectation, pay off that anticipation. So that's why I like punks, because punks are fundamentally structural. They say, do things at the 4, do things at the 8. Doesn't matter what you do, just that you do something, right? And then, so again, punks, you've got just a basic grammar of 8 bars. It starts with it starts with the 4 and the 8. The 8 is definitely the most dramatic if you're going to do something. And then the 4 would be a little bit less dramatic typically than the 8. But then you can keep chunking down, right? And so I call this the P8. I call that the P4. And you can chunk down to, for example, the P2 and the P6. And you can see over here in the first drop that all that's going on here is drums. And then we got this main hook that plays constant, like this does not change. It's the same thing. And then the only other thing that we have happening is these kinds of sounds playing on the punks, right? On the 4 and the 8, the 4 and the 8. And that's it. So this drop is groove, main synth, and then some punks, okay? And then over here is the exact same thing. We just have the money sounds and now the vocal in a call response structure playing on the punks. So the P4, P8, P4, P8. But like I told you, you can chunk down, right? So you can go from the 4 bar and the 8 bar and then go inside of those. So halfway in between those, you're going to get the 2 and the 6. Now, if you're doing the 2 and the 6, usually, when you listen to enough tracks and you break them down like I'm doing, you can see that usually the 2 and the 6 are the same thing. Well, what are the 2 and the 6 here? Clap fill, right? It's playing in between the little money sounds in the vocal, right? Money sounds in the vocals on the 4 and the 8. So here you got a new sound that comes in and it's playing on the 2 and the 6. And it's the same sound. Like it's it's just a pretty much a flawless example of punks. Like it's almost like a perfect demonstration of punks, because here we're just getting the most important ones, the 4 and the 8. Okay. And now over here we're getting the 4 and the 8, but now we're also getting the 2 and the 6, and you can still see the hierarchy. Because this little clap is not as big or exciting or as important as the 4. The 4 is the money sounds, a key thematic thing of the track, and the vocal.
Money, fancy shit.
But this is just a little clap fill. And it's the same thing every time on the 2 and 6. All right. Now this gives me another thing. Is again, like, so here we got the 4 and the 8. Here we got the 4 and the 8. Now we're adding the 2 and the 6. So this little punk addition too is a way that this second drop is elevated over and above the first drop. But you can see the organization. You can see the structure. You can see the hierarchy, right? It's undeniable when it gets broken down like this. And so if producers are complaining, why is my music not sounding or feeling? This wouldn't be a thing about sounding, right? Sounding is definitely more about like sound selection. Like, are you picking the right sounds? Like Sid here is picking sounds that fit the meta of tech house right now. So it sounds very contemporary. But again, this isn't a thing about how it sounds. So again, sound's going to be sound selection and then mixing. This is much more of like, why doesn't my track feel the same way? Why doesn't it tell similar stories? And that's usually a breakdown in an understanding of arrangement, right? When people are just stuffing their tracks randomly, they're not creating patterns, probably because they think it's too simple. That's usually going to be what producers are most afraid of. They don't want their tracks to sound boring. If they play it for other producers, they don't want to get judged by other producers. They don't want to be like, oh, that shit's too simple. You're not impressive. You're not a good producer. But that's not what it's about, right? We're not producers for producing for other producers. You can be if you want to, again. This is under the guise of when producers want to improve and want to make tracks that connect beyond themselves. They're not just making music for themselves. So assuming that, then learning like some of the arrangement theory stuff is very helpful because it will help you organize your music in a way that's going to be more compelling and more storytelling. All right. And punks are a big part of that. And so that's why we're breaking it down. And this track, again, is an awesome example of it. So hopefully that makes sense. Punks, right? Grammar of 8-bar section. You got the P4 and P8. Those are the two most important ones. There's even a hierarchy there. So P8 is going to be more dramatic, more important, bigger than P4. How do you make something bigger? Well, it doesn't even need to be necessarily bigger in sound, right? You can use bigger sounds through sound selection or make them bigger through mixing. Sure, why not? Because it makes it more exciting. But even like going back to this example is a really good example, is the vocal is a more important sound than the money sound. You can't build a track off of just the money sound. I mean, certainly you can, but again, if you want it to be at the top of the charts, you can't. Like that's going to be extremely difficult. You're going to have some vocal in there. And so the vocal is way more important than the money sound to the listener. And so you can see even right here, the P4 is just a money sound, right? Cool sound, great. Thematic for the track. But the vocal is at the P8. So you can see the hierarchy built in terms of what does it mean for the P8 to be more important? What does it mean for, there to be some kind of hierarchy? And it's really just the importance of the sound in the track. And so you can see that playing out right here too, because now the P4 and the P8s are both the money sound and the vocal. But here, now we're chunking down into the 2 and the 6. The clap right here, this clap fill, is a less important sound than both the thematic money sound and the vocal. All right, so it's a smaller sound in importance. And so just to point that out. Okay, and so that is the drop, and then let's move into the break. But again, this right here is the most important idea that you can gain from this track, other than what we talked about before, in terms of just finding a cool vocal hook that people want to say. Something that I even escaped my mind earlier during that conversation was that I said everything comes from the hook. So we looked at the vocal, we looked at the bass rhythm. We also looked at the bass melody because the bass melody is accenting the word fancy. And the track is called Fancy Shit, right? So all of that is obvious once you see it. But another thing that I wanted to point out was this money sound, right? Where's that coming from? It's coming from the lyrics, right? From the subject matter of the vocal itself, right? And so that's just a thematic thing. Again, reiterating the idea that everything comes from the hook. All right, so those are two massive ideas that I should probably write down in terms of reviewing them at the end. So I'm just going to move this over here, and we've got, let's just make this bigger. So we've got everything comes from the hook, and that's going to be the bass rhythm, bass melody, accenting fancy. Wow, fancy. And then we also have the lead synth, and then the money sounds. And then we also have punks. Woo! And yeah, I just spell them like punks, not P-U-N-C-S, Okay, so here we go. And I'm sorry, I just got to go over here and just type this out so I don't forget it. So we have the HE1, and HE1 just stands for hook drop 1. We'll just call this drop 1 to be simple. So drop 1 is going to be P4 and P8, P8. And then drop 2 adds P2 and 6. And then it's going to be clap. It's going to be money, sounds, and vocal. And then I also just want to emphasize the hierarchy is clear AF. Organization. Wait, hold on. Money is, all right, hold on. Music is organized noise. Got to remember that. All right, cool. Here we go.
Money, fancy shit. I like money.
All right, so now we're going into kind of the main break because we're starting to step down the energy to the lowest point here. So this is going to be, let's come over to the beat and we're going to do a strip section here. Strip. There we go. And let's color this purple because I like to color the strips purple.
Money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy.
And a strip is just kick, bass, hook usually. And you can hear basically that's what's going on.
Money, fancy shit.
Now he does have his kick hat.
Money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit.
All right, so here we go.
Money, fancy shit. I like money.
You can hear this kind of vocal drone in the background, Vox drone. So we'll just get that in there. Pretty gentle, a little bit wide, just wrapped around the vocal barely. It's not totally on the sides or anything, but
Money, fancy shit. I like 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 money, fancy shit. Buy me
okay, we got this.
money, fancy shit. I like money,
Okay, there you go. Another P4. Now that you know what it is, I can use the language.
money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy.
Okay, now this is another, and this is a pretty sophisticated example here, and it might also come intuitive as well, but this is just pretty good. It's just sophisticated. So let's break it down. What the hell am I talking about? Here we have a hat coming. So we have hold on one sec. Let me see.
Money, fancy shit. Rich. I like
Okay, we're getting kick hat and then clap plus clap. Okay, so the reason why I want to just highlight this for a moment is that this punk, when it comes in right here, the money sounds triggers the clap coming in. Now that's a very, very common structure in like a strip, or even if you're doing like a strip at the beginning of a drop, like a fake drop type of thing, where you just start off with kick and hat or just kick, and then you lift a little bit with a hat or a clap. That's what's kind of going on here. So very common structure, but the thing is the way these sounds interact is like when that money sound plays and then you get the clap, now the two are connected. So it's almost like this money sound right here triggers the clap coming in. All right. And so, yeah, just wanted to point that out too. To watch, you could feel it, all right? I could point that out, all right? We're just observing it, noticing it. But the most important thing for you in terms of arrangement is feeling the storytelling over time, all right? So feel how that happens.
money, fancy shit. I like 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 money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money, fancy.
All right, you probably felt that. Okay, so now we got a little riser coming in here, a little bit of a darker white noise. All right, so then this guy comes over here, and then here, and then here we got the full phrase. So I'm just gonna color that yellow here. So this is just a rep, partial rep. All right, cool. So here we got the HP, and then here we got HP on the kick and the on the beat and the bass. Okay, so this is now money delay, and let's just color that something else. We got a crash right here. Okay, so no crash back there. Any crash at the drops? Nope. All right, so it looks like just crashes for the brakes when you really step down. Okay, I'm gonna do just a vocal Vox delay channel here, and I'm just gonna move this down like that, just so we can get the vocals that play up here. Okay, there we go. And then we got these little clap fills coming in. Any over here? Okay, then we got this guy. This is money. Let's just do the call response again. Where are those guys? Here we go. Let's move this over here like that. Cut, cool. All right. Okay, interesting. So now we're going to get this kind of play with the delay. So, for example, if I get like a vocal or something, let's see. Do I have anything? Let's see, Fox. Oh, no. All right.
Headed toward death. You're headed toward prison.
Thank you, Matt. So the question.
Okay, whatever. We'll just use something like that. I just want to show you this. So, like, for example, if we get this guy.
So the question you may be asking.
Oh my God, that's such an old hook that I got. Okay, let me see.
Thank you, Matt.
So if I get this guy, what's a cool lyric on this actually? Let's see.
So the question you may be asking, how many like Dave are there? Is heroin addiction really an epidemic?
Okay, so let's get this guy right here. Okay, now I'm just fucking around, but whatever.
Really an epidemic.
So if I go get a delay, and we could just use Ableton's, right? The important thing about Ableton's is the repitch. And what I'm going to do is there's this kind of effect that he's using. There's different ways to do it, but I'm just going to use this guy. So let's go super high feedback here.
Really an epidemic.
And then I'm going to change this from sync to time. And I'm just going to bring this, I'm going to change the time from, let's go like 240. 240 is about an eighth note. And so then I'm just going to speed that up. So let's go over here and epidemic. And then we're going to go down to, we'll go down to like 30 milliseconds like that. And so you'll hear what this does. All right, and then let's play this, and then we will go down to maybe like 480, which is about a quarter note. But so you'll see 90. So here we go. All right, so that's kind of like, that's pretty cool. So here we go. So we'll go to like 30%, so it's not as prominent, but check it.
Really an epidemic. Really an epidemic.
There you go. And so like that's kind of the delay effect that is going on in the track a little bit right here. And there's other ways to do that. That's how you can do it in Ableton and get a cool effect. So you'll hear it here as the money delay will start to pitch around. Hear that? Okay, so this is a very unique part of the song, breaking things down like this. Okay, so let's get the money sound over here. But what do we got? Let's step back a little bit and let's kind of look at a higher level. Like, where the heck are we in the sound? So if I get a map going on up here, where the heck are we in the song? I mean, and so here we've got the intro, and then we've got like a little 8-bar. So we got intro, and then this is going to be what I call the bass drop. So I'll just do BD. It's where the bass comes in. Intro is just beats for the DJ. And then this is going to be your first break. That's where that kind of repetition of the vocal really comes up. And then you move into the payoff line. So it's going to be, we'll call this break 1, BK1. And then here we go into the first drop, 16 bars. And this is going to be, I'm going to call this HD1 for hook drop 1, because it's where you finally put the hooks over the groove, which is what people ultimately really want. They want the hook and the groove. And that's why arrangement is the development of the hooks over groove over time. And that's why I'm making this video really just to show you how to do that. And so here we have break 2, BK2, which is a little bit longer, right? A little bit more dragged out. We got the full vocal. And then over here we got HT2 with a little bit of the development that we looked at. HT2 with the hook, the punk development, some other things going on in there. And then now we're stepping into the main break and build. So this whole thing is going to be, all right, here's going to be MBB for main break and build. Now, what we want to do in a main break and build is we want to basically, like, what we want to do is we want to have like a V shape. I call it the V taper sometime, is we go down in energy. So here we're stepping down in energy, and then at a certain point, a turning point is we turn much longer. There we go. And so you can think of this is going to be MBB break, and this is going to be MBB build. And it's very simple. You've got the down and then the up. You go down and then you go up. And so let's feel, again, because that's what arrangement and storytelling is all about, how this down energy, which is the highest level to break it down, what does that actually feel like? What does a down energy feel like? Well, here we are up here. That feels pretty exciting, the most exciting of the track so far. And then we step down. What does that feel like?
Money, fancy shit. I like money.
All right, now this is a step down because we don't have all the, we don't have the main synth, and it's more of a strip section. And then we break it down even more right here.
Money. Fancy shit. I like
And then it breaks down even more over here.
money. I like money.
Okay, so
Money.
we start here and we end
Money.
there. Okay, that's what down feels like when you're breaking things down over time. And then you build up. So you switch directions. And so another way to think about the main break and build is that you're going from lowest to highest. You're going from the lowest point of energy right here,
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff I know.
okay, to the highest point of energy, which is around here.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff I know you rich.
All right, that's the highest energy point, the most exciting. And one thing to point out is the importance of perceived energy levels. Even if, and it's so critical to understand this, even if 145, bar 145 right here, and 89 were doing the exact same thing, which is totally fine. Even if they were doing exactly the same thing, this would still be the highest energy point. Because why? Because of what came before it, the amount of anticipation, the amount of energy that was set up before it makes this moment stand out way more. It's way more emotionally satisfying, right? Even if objectively it has the exact same elements as what had played like in an earlier section. That doesn't matter, right? Producers freak out all the time like, oh, I can't just copy a drop over. Of course you can. Because it's not about copying the drop. Again, we're not trying to impress necessarily other producers. We're trying to create a good experience on the dance floor. And so it's not about just copying a drop over here. It's about understanding what precedes it. That changes the listener's perspective of what's going on right here and perception of it. But that's not what happens because I think he's doing some more here, which is fine because you can always do even that crash right there. Check this out. So there's no crash right here. But there is a crash right there. So even right there, we're getting a slight elevation over and above what happened before. All right. But I just wanted to zoom out and show you where we are. Where are we? Okay. Well, we had the intro. We got introduced the bass line. We introduced the vocal. We put that main synth and some of the punks in the drop. And then we go into the vocal and the break again. We got a second drop, and now we're in the main break and build where we're really breaking things down. We got that down energy. We're about to shift gears into up energy, and then we pay off with the last drop, and that's going to be the track. Okay, but let's keep on breaking it down on a more granular level right here as we go into this little section, which is the lowest point of energy in the track, the nadir. Here we go.
Fancy shit. I like money. I
So this is interesting. So this is almost like a disco loop. So taking a little inspiration, not just from electro, but also like indie dance in general, I think, in tech house, just a little bit with the drums, with those steady 8th note kind of live hi-hats kind of sound in there. But anyway, here's a little bit of a disco loop. No bass is gone. So really pumping the brakes, really slowing things down. And this is a very unique section. Any other track, you could totally do something like this. Like, let's just delete this for a second. I move this over, and you could totally do this.
I know you rich.
Okay, let's see. Let's go like this, maybe.
I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know
All right, that would have worked too, but Sid's going an extra 8 bars here on the down energy.
money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff. I know you
All right, so what else have we got in here? We got the little disco drum loop.
money. I like money.
We've got these kind of, we're going to do like delays, pitching up and down. Oops. Cool. Over here.
Fancy shit. I like money. I like money.
All right, cool. And then we're going back into like a little bit of a rep here. So we got the calls.
I like money. I like money. I like money. I like money. Fancy shit.
All right, and then we're getting the response here at the, where are we getting the response at? So here's a call, and then response where? Where does it happen? Here's bar 1, here's bar 2, here's bar 3, here's bar 4. Oh my goodness.
Money, fancy shit. I like
It's a punk.
money.
Ah, wow.
I like money, fancy shit. I like money. I like money. I like money, fancy shit.
Okay, so these kind of like fall off to move vocal forward in the mix, right? To the front of the mix.
Money. I like
Okay, so here tops go away. So it's just kick and snare.
money. I like money.
Technically clap snare. So clap, snare.
Money. I like money. I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you.
Okay, so kind of like no kick, or kind of like kick fills type of thing.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff,
And then here we got,
I like money, fancy shit.
and then here we got the full phrase again. So full phrase. This is a very unique section here. Very cool. All right, so.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money, fancy
All right, cool. And then we got the money sound here to kick things off again. Do we get it over here?
money, fancy shit. I like money.
Now, interesting staging in this track. So staging for me is where things happen in these kind of blocks. And so we saw that happen over here, which I thought was very strange. But then when I listened a little bit longer, I realized what he was doing is he's just staging down the tops. But you'll hear things happening in blocks of time. So here,
Money, fancy shit.
so full drums,
Money, fancy shit.
full drums here, but then steps down, watch, abruptly.
Money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit.
And then steps down abruptly right here.
Money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy.
So that's, and again, that funny click right there. That's just a filter, moving down. Here, again, things are happening in stages where we've got this kind of disco loop.
Money. I like money.
And then the tops are going to go away right here. So it's staged, right?
Money.
It's not gradual, in other words.
Money.
In other words, like discrete would be the counterpart of things being gradual. But
Money, fancy shit. I like money. I like money.
so kick, clap here, and then it's staged again. It gets chunked or blocked. And then we get no kick and just a little bit of like kick fill stuff.
I like money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich. I like money, fancy shit.
All right. And that is where we switch directions. Now, right here, this moment is what I call the turning point. Because this is the moment when you switch from the down energy, which could not be more obvious in terms of seeing how that plays out, to up energy. That's the turning point. And so now we're going into up energy. So how do you create, or how does he create, up energy, the feeling of going up? All right, that's the question in terms of storytelling. And again, we can look at two things. What's the groove story in terms of going up? What's the hook story in terms of going up? Now, there's a third story, actually, which is the effects, because the effects are just going to underlie and support what's going on. But let's see what happens. All right, let's start with the groove. So we just go right back into high-pass drums and bass right here. So we're just stepping up, in other words. So this turning point, you want to make a definitive move. And what Sid is doing is he's stepping up with the drums and bass. We've even got a crash right here. So let's bring that over. There's a freaking ride in there, which is anticipating a ride coming in the last drop. That is really cool. I love that. Anticipating what's to come, not just in the hooks, but also in the groove section. Very cool. We've got risers already starting to come up. So risers inherently communicate an up energy or the feeling of things, well, rising. Okay. Or in other words, tension is building, right? Tension is increasing. Cool. We got this little sound right here. We've got the vocal rep, the full, so we got a vox rep full phrase. One thing I want to point out again with elevations is that I don't think... Okay, back here, we didn't have a full vocal rep, right? I like money, fancy shit, but here we get a full vocal rep. So this right here is an example of elevations in the breaks. Here we're just getting kind of like a call rep, but this is the full repetition. And same with over here in the main build. You can already hear some kind of growing effects on the vocal, and growing for me just means growing the space, right? So you can do that through delay or reverb, endless smile, whatever you want to do. It does not matter. Just that you're moving things back in the mix so that when you land in the drop, it just moves everything forward and sounds really dramatic and punchy and aggressive. So the bass is definitely opening. So this is kind of a rise effect because as the cutoff opens, you're getting more frequencies in there, which is the feeling of anticipation, also just more aggressive. Right, you can already hear that delay on there as well on the vocal, but let's bring all this over because it will continue. So what else we got? We've got the money sounds right here. Okay, there's no dings though. He probably just wanted to wait and to save that little ding for the end. Plus, those would just be a little bit too, like, it would just kind of halt the energy a little bit too much. So maybe that was something that he felt also. You definitely hear the riser in there, a tonal riser. Okay, now this is where money rep. Okay, so just like over here, we got the money rep. Okay. But you can hear even how this is elevated over and above. Even though the vocal is doing the same rep, you can hear that the surrounding context is different and more elevated over here. How so? If we play right here and play right here, well, immediately you can hear that there's a much bigger riser playing here. You've got a ride there. You don't have a ride earlier. All right, so there's just different ways that this is being elevated over and above what came before, which is all about storytelling and arrangement, developing the hooks and groove over time. All right, it's building up energy, creating that more tension, more anticipation for what's to come right here in the most exciting moment of the track, the raison d'être. Raison d'être. I don't know how to say that, but it means reason for being. Here we go. Okay, so this more delay and grow more. Okay, and then we get that little snare roll thing again, which is really funny. just takes us to the top. That's an example of what I call a peak out, where it like this is you just build and build and build and build and build and build, but something has to take you to the very top of the build where you interrupt all that building tension and then you deliver the payoff line. And that's what this little snare roll right here is doing. It's just taking you to the top. Okay, so then here we have the bass still going. We've got the payoff vocal, the full phrase. Cool. And then we're probably going to get these. Do we have a money sound right here? All right, there we go. And then we're moving towards the last drop, or we're now in the last drop. But you can see, I mean, pretty simple, very, very straightforward in terms of executing principles, right? How do you build tension? You may have heard this in other videos, but rep, roll, rise, grow. At least, well, not other videos, my videos on the arrangement breakdowns. But rep, roll, rise, grow. Hook repetition, snare roll, rep, roll, rise, risers, opening the cutoff, anything that communicates up, and then grow, growing the space, delay, reverb, whatever. But that's how you build tension, those ingredients. And so we've got the money rep, and the roll. We've got this little snare roll. We don't have a lot of other rolls. We don't have a kick roll. We don't have a crash roll. We don't really have a big snare roll. Just a little tiny snare roll at the end. Rep, roll, rise. We've got this riser here. We've got the bass opening up through the cutoff, rise, and then grow. We've got the vocal growing. And there's other things probably going into a space, but very simple in terms of what's going on. It's just cool things. It's cool things that people actually give a shit about and care about. Okay.
Money, fancy shit. Buy me stuff, I know you rich.
So I'm going to just copy the entire HD2 over here to HD3, hook drop 3. Okay, though this is cool. Okay, so now we're getting a definite drum development or elevation. So if I play this right away, you'll hear there's a new sound in the drums. Watch. If I play this here. Okay. Okay, you've got the white noise texture from earlier, so they're front-loading the white noise energy that happened in the second 8 bars over here, and they're moving it to the front there, but we're also getting a full hat lift. So now this is just playing on the offbeat. This is a different sound, different 909 hat, but a full, right? So just... So it's just a lift, or technically an elevation. Just a development in the drums. Again, arrangement is how the hooks and groove develop over time. And we're looking right here. I'm pointing to my screen that this is how the... no, hold on. If I hit Control A, does that pull up? Dang it. Why is that not working? Because let's see. Present. Dang it. Where is... Presentify. If I go over here, let's see. Is it pulling it up? No? Oh, dang it. All right, anyway. I got this app that allows me to draw on the screen, but it's not pulling up right now, so I got to figure that out later. Anyway, okay, so moving on. But I was going to point to this because this is like we're looking directly at a development in the drums, which is fundamentally an arrangement thing, right? Like this move right here needs to be understood not just here, but in the context of the entire story, maybe just the groove story, right? Because, you know, that's what it is. Like that, this is an elevation. You're lifting the drum energy over and above what happened before. So we can't really understand this unless we understand what was happening before. That's the concept of arrangement. Okay. And so let's see what else is happening. Well, like we pointed out before, we got a crash here. That's an elevation. We've got the white noise texture. That's lifting over and above. So 3 things, right? And we're not even past the first second of it. And we already got some cool stuff going. Okay, of course, here we have the lead synth. We've got the clap fill. Now we're just kind of making sure everything's there.
I like money,
Okay, boom. Now we're getting hit with a ride. So now this is a lift. Okay, and then are we getting the bass layer? Let's see.
I like money.
No, interesting. We're not getting the bass lift, but we do get it over here. Strangely. All right, but we're definitely getting a ride lift there. Oh, and we're getting a 16th lift. What the heck? I didn't hear that the first time I listened to this track. Tops, 16th. What the heck? What about over here? Wow. I mean, that's just funny almost. It's like out of this whole track, all of a sudden, just to get a lift, we're going to have 8 bars of where we get a little 16th note shaker. I don't know why I find that funny, but I find that funny. All right, so we get a top 16th note lift, which is just a closed hat. That's all this is.
I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. I like money, fancy shit. I like money.
All right, so now we're going to get the money delay that we kind of got earlier. Interesting. Are we going to get a full phrase of the vocal? You would kind of expect maybe to get the full phrase at least at the very end. Like that would be the last thing you get, but not in this case, I guess.
I like money, fancy shit. I like money.
Just going to rename this little guy right here, payoff moments right there. And so that's just before HD3. And then here we just got to make sure we got the beat over there like that. We got the bass coming over. Okay, but we still have the ride and the top 16th playing right there. We've got the vocal delay going down. You could definitely hear the bass layer there. Okay, so the ride goes away, but the top 16th continues. Okay, you can hear that definite little white noise riser coming up here. So we'll do, this is going to be outro. So we'll do outro, and this is going to be groove because the full groove is playing. And then we're going to have a nice little outro section where it's mostly going to be like HP, high pass, pretty much. Just giving DJs, making it easier for them to mix. That's it. You hear the low pass down-ish, maybe the decay's tightening on the envelope, whatever, you know. Let's get the little claps over here. Are the claps playing? Let's play right here. Can't hear. Can't tell. Yeah. Okay, hear them? Whatever, they're gonna be there. Whatever. All right, so no top 16th, but we do have the okay, so that continues, and then we break down to this pattern. And then we just get the beats and the tops at the end. All right. Man, really, really simple, just track. Just getting the big things, right? Just tapping into the contemporary kind of sound, the meta, with that kind of electro house kind of influence on the groove. Even culturally, like if you go to Splice House, that big hook about that girl who wanted a guy that was like 6'5" with blue eyes and something about other things. I mean, maybe it was influenced, maybe it wasn't, but like that's just something that was in the zeitgeist, you could say. And but just something cool that people want to say. So let's head back over to our little document over here. But yeah, this is the main thing. Everything comes from the hook. Oh, you know what? Before we put that, like find a hook that, this is what wraps it all up. This is kind of cool. Find a hook that people care about. Don't forget that vocals say something. All right? And you want them to say something cool. So there we got that. And then, okay, so once you find a kind of a cool hook, like vocal hook or something, then everything falls from that. We saw that the bass rhythm comes from that, the bass melody with accenting fancy there. The lead synth comes from the hook and the bass, and even the money sounds comes from the lyrics. But everything, all the important stuff, the bass, the lead, the money sounds, all the things that really matter in the track come from the hook. All right, and then finally looking at punks. So this is kind of like super high level, finding your hook. This is how then to think about using your hook to kind of generate all the ideas, all the other ideas in your track. And then this is a very kind of, I guess, bottom level when it comes to arrangement, like getting granular level when it comes to how to kind of create a hook pattern. And so here we saw with the punks, we got the 4 and the 8 with the money sounds and then the vocal. So 4, 8, 4, 8, so P4, P8. And then over here, we got the P4 and P8, but then we're starting to fill out with a P2 and P6. So this is just a perfect example of punks. One thing I do want to mention too is it doesn't matter what you do. Just that you do something, but the next level of all of this is just seeing how all these kind of sounds relate. So here with the lead sound, we've got a call response within the lead sound. So da-na-na-na-na-na-na, right? And then this stays flat. Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na. So you get a call response here within the lead itself. Okay. And then of course these punks are filling the gap right there, the clap ones. But then even these punks right here, the vocal, the P4 vocal and the P8 vocal all are call response. And so you've got a call response here, and then you've got a call response here. So this whole section is like these nested call response. You've got the higher level call response right across 4 bars right here. And then you've got from the vocal and just from the vocal. And then you've got the kind of lower level call response that happens here in just the synth. And so, yeah, punks like are really helpful for you in terms of laying out where things can happen in the drop and understanding the hierarchy of things. But also you got to keep in mind, like even within the sounds themselves, how to get them call responsing and keeping them interested. Because what fundamentally call response does is still just tension and release, right? It's just a specific execution of tension and release, because any kind of thing like that is going to create anticipation for something that comes next. So as soon as we hear da na 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 na, our brain by the end of the track or even way over here is already going to know the next one is da na 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 flat, right? And so I just want to point that out. But yeah, so P4 and P8. We saw that in drop 1. Drop 2 adds the P2 and 6 clap. The important is that the hierarchy in the punks is very clear, and we can even see that just from moving from HG1 to HG2, just adding the kind of more minor punks, P2, P6. And I can even call them, you got, here we got major punks on the P, and then we got minor punks, right? Major and minor punks, not to be confused with music theory, although, this is certainly music theory in the sense that it's theories about music. But music is organized noise for sure. And then just looking at the storytelling overall, okay, is we've got, again, it's the story of the hooks and groove over time. And so what happens with the groove? Well, not that much. I mean, the biggest moves are we get this kind of like low-level hat lift here that just plays on the first offbeat and skips the second one. And the biggest developing moves on the groove come from the bass opening up. That's probably the biggest move. The cool ones really happen here at the end, where we get that new, bigger hat that plays constantly on the offbeats. We get the ride, and then we got the 16th. So there's a lot of big developing moves that happen here in the groove at the end. Why? Because this is the most exciting. This is the punchline of the track. This is what everything is working towards, is to create this exciting moment. And then with the hooks, what develops there? Well, actually not a lot. Not a lot. It's just really, here we have the lead synth and then the punks on the 4 and the 8. Here we have the lead synth again, but now we have punks on the 2, 4, 6, and 8. Over here, there's really no development on the hooks whatsoever. It's just that this is a very long break. And so the idea is like, we got these cool things here in HG1 and then HG2, and then we had to wait like a minute and 15 seconds to get that again, you know? And so we got hit with something cool. We want it again, but it's the surrounding context around the hooks that changed and elevated it and gave it more energy. But the hooks themselves stayed almost exactly the same. And then we just moved to the outro. And so it's very simple. It really, I mean, I guess it's just like, here we got the punks in the lead synth. You got some extra punks in the lead synth. Here we got no change in the hooks. Here we got groove. Here we got basically the same groove. And then here we got some elevations in the groove. And so here and here, no development. But here to here in a groove, big development. From here to here in the hooks, we've got development in the punks. But here to here, pretty much no development in terms of the drops. But very cool track. If you got your own insights into this track, definitely leave them down below. If you got any questions, leave them down below. But we'll stop it here, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. Peace.